wakey. Oh, come on, pal, get up.
Once upon a time in the 1800s in Italy, there lived a person named Carlo Collodi. He didn't like children, so he decided to write a book about all of the horrible things that would happen to a child if they didn't listen to their parent. This book followed a little wooden puppet named Pinocchio. He gets hanged at the end. But people liked the book, so he kept writing about it. Pinocchio got saved by a blue fairy and continued to go on adventures. Fast forward 200 years and some people in Korea were like, damn, we like this story. Let's turn it into Dark Souls. And now somehow we're here talking about how strong Pinocchio is. So let's go over everything the kid has and figure out just how powerful Carlo/P from Lies of P is. Once upon a time, a metal angel came to Earth wanting to share the gift of immortality with humanity. But humans in their greed tore the angel to shreds, and all that was left was its arm. The arm of God. Fast forward a bit and let me introduce you to Ergo, a strange crystalline resource that has the ability to bring automatons to life. The discovery of this resource turned Krat from a small, poor fishing village into a metropolis of its time. Spearheaded by Sir Valentinus, the head of the alchemist organization. The alchemists were in the possession of the arm of God and wanted to use Ergo to figure out how to transcend with it. Sir Valentinus worked closely with Giuseppe Geppetto, who was responsible for bringing the automaton puppets to life using Ergo as a power source. Until one day the alchemist caused a freak accident that led to Giuseppe's wife getting killed. Of course, the alchemist would try and cover this up, but Giuseppe knew better. In his despair, Geppetto sent his only son Carlo off to the Monet charity house, pretty much breaking Carlo's heart, never visiting him, and drowning himself in his research. Carlo grew to hate his father due to this, but at the Monet charity house he would meet Sophia and Romeo, who would become his best friends. Romeo and Carlo shared the same dream of wanting to become stalkers. In the city of Krat, the stalkers were essentially a vigilante force. They would fight off crime and also protect the upper class families in the city. But Romeo and Carlo wanted to be trained by someone who wasn't actually part of either of the stalker factions, those being the sweepers or the bastards. Instead, they had their sights set on being the apprentice of the legendary stalker, Leia. A stalker who gained her notoriety because she faced off against a murderous puppet that no other stalker could fight. Originally dismissive of the two, Leia came around to letting them be her apprentices, and under her tutelage, the two became master stalkers. That was until the alchemist contacted Carlo and lured him away somewhere and made it so that he died of the petrification disease. The petrification disease was a strange illness that was plaguing Krat. Essentially, it would slowly turn you into stone. Carlo's death broke all those who loved him, but strangely of all the people who took it the hardest, it was Geppetto. Upon learning his son now was dead, he lost his mind. Geppetto was the creator of all of the puppets until his rival Vanini showed up. But together they created a grand covenant that all puppets had to follow, essentially guaranteeing that a puppet couldn't go off and just kill people like the murderous puppet had before. But unknown to everyone, the grand covenant had a secret rule, Rule 0. The creator is Geppetto, which ties into the grand covenant's number 1 rule. All puppets must obey their creator. See, here's the thing about Ergo. It's not just a power source. It's human ego and soul. Ergo forms when someone dies of the petrification disease. Essentially, Ergo is just a person's frozen memories and time. So when putting Ergo into puppets, they essentially were resurrecting people that died of the petrification disease, as long as certain conditions were met. Of those conditions, one had to be that the puppet that the person's Ergo was put into had to look like them. The second condition was the Ergo had to be extracted post-mortem rather quickly or else it would fade. This was how the murderous puppet that Leia took down came to be. Someone made a puppet that looked like a serial killer that recently had died of the petrification disease and they put his Ergo into it. This serial killer, Arlecchino, had his ego awake in the puppet and was reborn. And thus, Geppetto had the perfect plan to bring his son Carlo back to the world. Only there was one issue. Carlo had already been dead for some time. With the second condition not being able to be met, Geppetto came up with the worst possible plan ever. Start a genocide. Geppetto would place Carlo's Ergo into the body of a puppet that he made to look similar to him, and then he would command every puppet to start killing everyone. Since Ergo is human souls, the puppets would begin to absorb Ergo after killing people. Then Carlo and his new puppet body would show up and start killing the puppets to absorb the Ergo. Geppetto's plan was, even though he couldn't resurrect Carlo right away, if he had enough Ergo, he could eventually awaken Carlo's memories and thus bring him back. But this plan didn't really go off without a hitch because the alchemists had their own plan. They were giving people sick with the petrification disease a false medicine, which was essentially turning them into monsters, known as carcasses. Add on to the fact that Geppetto just got ambushed and cornered by the remaining stalker forces who survived the puppet frenzy and wanted him dead. And then on top of all of that, Geppetto had killed and resurrected Romeo as a prototype for what he was going to do with Carlo. And Romeo wasn't going to let that slide. Geppetto had given him the title of the King of Puppets, so he would essentially be a fall guy for the puppet frenzy. But best bro Romeo's ego awoke and he decided to take the more heroic path. Though he was still bound to the Grand Covenant's Rule 0, he decided he was going to start awakening the egos in other puppets and only attack carcasses, essentially allowing him to keep following Rule 0, but also doing it on his own terms so he wasn't a mindless killing machine. And now our protagonist joins the story. Even though Geppetto couldn't activate the puppet that Carlo's Ergo was in, someone else did. Sophia, Carlo's old friend from the Monet charity house. Sophia is a listener, able to hear the Ergo and the voices that lie within it. Though kidnapped by the alchemist and used for their experiments, she was able to reach out to the puppet that Carlo's Ergo was in and awoke him. Enter P, our protagonist. And before you make fun of that name, P stands for Pinocchio, or in Korean, P means blood. P is not quite Carlo, at least not yet. As of right now, he's a puppet not bound by the Grand Covenant, but has Carlo's Ergo within him. Essentially, this means he's a puppet with free will. From here, Carlo would go all throughout Krot, fighting carcasses, puppets, stalkers, and alchemists, all trying to figure out just what happened before he woke up. Even though he's not quite Carlo yet, he still retains Carlo's skill, as even the battle maniac of the Black Rabbit Brotherhood makes note of how his fighting style is neither sweeper or bastard style, falling in line with how he's Leia's apprentice. Being a master stalker means that P is proficient in dozens of types of weapons, and each weapon he uses he's able to empower with Ergo to use fable arts. And keeping with the weird tradition of stalkers, he's able to mix and match pieces of weapons to make his own unique thing, like putting the acidic spine of a carcass on the end of a booster glaive handle. And that's just one of the hundreds of types of combinations he can make. He's got several of electrical-based weapons like an electrical coil hammer, a sword that's just perpetually superheated so it's basically like getting cut by lava, what can only be described as a giant pizza cutter, more acidic-based weapons like a hammer that can spew acid out of it when you hit it on the ground, and the fan favorite, the booster glaive. Because if you can't swing fast enough, why not just put a rocket on the handle so that you can? He also has a handheld rocket stake that increases in power and makes him run faster the more he has it on. Perfect for killing murderous puppets and vampires. He also has a giant welding tool as a weapon that's essentially just a super flamethrower that he can increase the heat on. This welding tool is also capable of melting extremely durable steel, mainly used for making demolition puppets. He also has Lasatia's sword, which lets him shoot lightning out of it, or empower himself with lightning, which lets him teleport around at the speed of lightning, and also increases every single attack used by the sword, and it can just shoot a beam of continuous electricity out of it. And as if we needed more acidic weapons, he has a staff that can just shoot acid out of it. But of course his best weapons are the boss weapons, which he can't disassemble, but it's not like he needs to. The Sword of the Ark has a short and long range mode that he can switch between, which influences how he fights with it. The Azure Glaive is a powerful weapon that allows P to deflect while fighting and retaliate. It also may be empowered by Chi, due to it being from the Wo Long series. The Golden Lie is a weapon born from the magic painting that reflected P's humanity as he was gaining back his memories. After becoming fully human, he was able to take the stick off of the painting and use it as a weapon. The description of the Golden Lie says that its length changes as P wishes. He has claws that change in length and allow him to attack like he's Wolverine. Plus, they just look cool when he uses them. The Pale Knight is a gun sword that uses Ergo-infused bullets as ammunition. P uses the recoil from these bullets so that he can jump around the battlefield and slash quicker, and he's even capable of empowering it even further with more ergo. The 7-coiled sword is akin to the real-life 7-branch sword given to Japan by Korea. It's also capable of sending out waves of ergo. With Lumachios, the leader of the Bastards' umbrella etiquette, he's able to parry with style. Yeah, imagine an umbrella being a weapon that actually is useful. Frozen Feast is a giant greatsword that continuously has ergo reversing time on it so that it turns into stone again. The sword is insanely powerful, but dulls when the ergo turns back into stone. Though P can spend his own ergo fable arts to take off the stone. Or just keep hitting his opponent till it falls off. The Two-Dragon Sword is one of his most powerful weapons. Originally belonging to a hero over the seas and then used by Alidoro, the Two-Dragon Sword fighting style is extremely unique in that P can use the heavy attack to deflect. And this isn't an ordinary deflect, it's basically a super deflect. The blade is also capable of shooting waves of ergo out of it. The Puppet Ripper is Romeo's weapon of choice. Essentially, it's a scythe that's also a whip. So the range on the weapon is far greater than what it actually lets on, letting P keep his distance while also dealing tons of heavy damage. Plus, it's best bro Romeo's weapon, so why not use it? Ouroboros' eye is a strange chakram-like weapon used by the alchemist. He also has an ergo-infused club that generates more ergo the more times he hits someone with it. It also can empower itself with ergo too. And then we have the Proof of Humanity, P's signature ultimate weapon, at least before the DLC. The weapon used by the nameless puppet. Essentially, these are two dual-bladed scissor blades that can combine into a single blade. P's capable of empowering them and using them to do flashy combos. The nameless puppet was even able to use the blades like a gun at one point. He also has a bow that he can supercharge with ergo to make the ergo red and send out a stupidly powerful shot. For reference, red ergo seems to be much more powerful than the normal blue ergo, as seen with Leia, Nameless Puppet, and Arlecchino. I forgot to mention them before, but he essentially has a baseball bat that explodes when he hits someone with it, that he can also supercharge because of course he can. And he has a giant pinwheel weapon of death, because that's a thing that exists. Thanks, Battle Maniac, for making this weapon. But P's ultimate weapon is the Monet Rose Sword. Originally his mentor Leia's. Once upon a time, Leia made a wish that her, Carlo, and Romeo could be reunited one last time. Somehow this wish came true, and P went back in time to help Leia take out Arlecchino once and for all. Together they saved Romeo, and P was gifted Leia's sword. But the insane thing about this sword is that it has no powers whatsoever. Yes, you heard that right. This sword has no special properties at all. This is all on the user to be doing these ridiculous things. Both Leia and P can dash around the battlefield and move at minimum the speed of lightning to the speed of light with this thing. The only thing we can guess gave it this special power is the amount of vows that run along the blade. The vows that Leia made after Carlo died. In fact, using By the Name of the Rose just says that the user says a vow and then moves around like they're Virgil from Devil May Cry. So if anything, it's like the user's resolve is letting them do this crap. But you might have noticed that P doesn't come into battle single-handedly. Or, I guess he does, but he has a prosthetic arm. Enter the Legion arms. The base one is just a metal arm that he can punch with. It doesn't really do much. Even still, he's capable of bending metal fences with it and punching straight through people. He's even capable of beating senseless the Anguished Warrior with just his fists. He has the puppet string, a grappling hook that pulls people towards him or him towards them so that he can jump in the air for a huge attack. The Fulminous, an electrical arm that just lets him do electrical things. Basically, he's shooting a thunderbolt out of his arm. Pandemonium is a grotesque arm made of carcass stuff. that lets him shoot out acid that will stay on the ground for a while, and he can even switch the direction in which he throws it. Basically, it creates environmental hazards that explode. Falcon Eyes is a gun arm that will shoot projectiles that will stick to an enemy and then explode after a while. Not really much to it beyond that. Icarus fires out bladed boomerangs that will spin around the enemy for some time before coming back, and then that hypercharges the next boomerangs. P can also spin Fable to send out every single one of these boomerangs that will spin around him instead. The Aegis is a shield arm that explodes upon hitting P, and he can even charge it up for another attack afterwards, though the explosion does have a recharge time. But my favorite one is Cataclysm, basically an arm-mounted shotgun. P can charge this up and save the shot for later, or if he charges it up just right, it can explode with even more force. The Deus Ex Machina lets P plant landmines that will explode if an enemy walks within their radius, but will spare P. Flamberge is an arm-mounted flamethrower that increases in heat after a while and lets P make it explode. P's Legion arm is also mounted with a grinder so that he can sharpen and repair his weapons. He's also able to put special grindstones into this grinder so that his weapons gain special effects, ranging anywhere from destroying things more proficiently to empowering it with fire, acid, lightning, and other stuff. When it comes down to P's fighting style, it's based around deflecting the enemy until he can stagger them and then score a fatal hit. A boon of this fighting style is that P is capable of breaking the opponent's weapon by just deflecting them enough. In combination with his proficiency with all sorts of different weapon styles and his ability to manipulate ergo, this makes him exceptionally deadly as a fighter. And that's not even getting into his myriad of throwables either. P is almost too good at throwing things. Among his throwables, he has shot puts, which he can throw just as far as all of his other items. The world record for the shot put throw is 23.5 meters, and P is more than capable of throwing items this far. Among his throwables, he has canisters of acid, lightning, and fire he can just toss on the ground to make an AoE effect, cluster grenades which make continuous explosions where they land, throwing cells which are basically bottled electricity, thermite, carcass body fluid which is basically acid in a bottle, chains and sharp pipes, and of course the ever fateful shot put. But when put up against P's other feats of strength, breaking the world record shot put throw casually is nothing. P only needs a measly 700 to 800 joules of energy to even break the shot put world record. To deform fences like P does when he punches them, P would have to output 145,000 joules of energy into one punch. And that's only assuming that he deforms the fence by 1 foot inward. If he deforms the fence even more, it's more joules of energy. P deforming a fence alone would be the equivalent of a 1,000-kilogram car hitting a fence at 38 miles per hour. And this is still a low end for his strength. Lasatia is capable of attacking at the speed of lightning, and her sword is rather big. Kinda makes it hard to get an accurate measurement on it, but we'll just say that it's double the weight of the average claymore, which means it should be about 5 kilograms. The average speed of lightning is 440,000 meters per second. The low end for how much force Lasatia should be outputting with these attacks is 115 tons of TNT. That's 484 trillion joules of energy. And for reference, the average bolt of lightning only has about 1 billion joules of energy. And that's the calculation for the average speed of lightning. If we take higher end speeds like 1/3 the speed of light, which lightning can reach, this calculation will shoot up to 6.5 megatons of TNT. That's more than half of the Hiroshima bomb. And P is capable of deflecting that. Originally, I thought it was going to be the fight with the Anguished Guardian that shoots up P's strength, but apparently it's much lower than I originally thought. But Lasatia here just blows every single one of those calculations out of the water. And keep in mind, P should be able to hit with the same force as Lasatia because he can use her weapon and even put it on more heavy things. And we can also thank this game's equivalent of Melania for P's speed feats. Not only does her being the speed of lightning give P lightning reaction times and speed, but it also potentially upscales the speed of By the Name of the Rose. Because if you have some argument that P doesn't reach lightning speeds from facing Lasatia, he absolutely does with By the Name of the Rose. This being because while using the Fable art, in just 1 frame, P can move the exact same distance a lightning bolt does in 1 frame. which would mean that at the bare minimum, when using By the Name of the Rose, P is equal to the speed of lightning. And that's still a low end because it's possible that P is actually moving at the speed of light when using the Fable Art. The fact P assumes a luminous form, becomes intangible, the attack distorts the space around him, and the fact that he leaves after images very much make it possible that he's moving at the speed of light. At the very minimum, being close to the speed of light because it's distorting space around the slashes. Assuming that By the Name of the Rose does let you move at 99% the speed of light, one slash would be outputting 157 megatons of TNT, which is 10 times more than the Hiroshima bomb. P is doing at least 37 of those slashes. But more proof for that light speed stuff is that P has actually dodged lasers while they were firing. Thanks, Anguished Warrior. And while talking about all of this lightning and light speed stuff, I haven't even mentioned what his best gimmick is. His immortality. Ergo is crystallized time, and by harnessing this power, one is capable of time traveling in some instances. And this is exactly what Sophia does. By harnessing the power of Ergo, Sophia is able to turn back time for the entire world, just to bring P back to life in his peak. Whenever you die in the game, Sophia is turning back time for the entire planet to bring you back to life. But it's not only Sophia who has this power, because she gave P a stopwatch that has the same exact effect. And near the end of the game, P even absorbs Sophia's Ergo. Granted, you can give it back to her in one of the endings, but P can just also keep it. Without Sophia around, this means that P is now the one who's reversing time to undo his death. P is even able to use the white butterfly to go back in time to before he, as a puppet, even existed. Granted, this is more the white butterfly's power than P's, but P is capable of jumping timelines after this. His actions in the past even influence the future and change them. With time travel being one of Ergo's abilities, suddenly that lightspeed slash doesn't sound so far-fetched. And in Lies of P, star fragments are said to cross dimensions to grant wishes for people. That being the case, since P was brought to the alternate timeline by Leia's wish, it's possible that he crossed dimensions to get there. And considering it's the white butterfly that guided P to the alternate timeline, it's pretty safe to say that Ergo has some dimensional crossing capabilities. Though that doesn't necessarily mean that P does. Except for maybe By the Name of the Rose, because it does distort space when we use it, and it's based on Virgil's Judgment Slash from Devil May Cry, so I'm not going to doubt that it's cutting dimensions. But Ergo manipulation is hardly the only hack that he has. P has various amulets, which also are made of Ergo in some cases, that modify his abilities. These can range from not consuming pulse cells, which we'll get into later, to empowering him whenever he deflects an attack, to empowering him whenever he does an attack, making him stronger the more Fable he has charged up, to making him super heavy in weight, to even being immune to status conditions entirely. And as we mentioned before, he has his electrical dodge, which lets him zoom around at the speed of lightning. Plus, the kid can redirect lightning back at people.
P organs are the source of your powers.
Yeah, it's called the P organ. But fun fact, blood in Korean is pronounced P, so the P organ is literally a blood organ. It's the heart. Anyways, have fun with your jokes. The P organ is literally what allows P to function. For all intents and purposes, it is a heart, powered by Ergo. If you destroy the P organ, you kill P. Don't forget about that whole reversing time immortality thing though. But this thing is far much more than just a soul-powered pacemaker. From empowering the organ with quartz, P gains all sorts of abilities. Not only does his strength continue to increase, but he gains more Ergo upon defeating enemies, gains more Fable while attacking, gains Fable upon deflecting, his weapons heal upon deflecting, buffs to his weapons last longer, he takes less damage, he consumes less stamina, he can carry more items around, he can literally teleport different Legion arms onto him, he gets healed more effectively, items affect him better, heals charge up his Fable, weapons he's not using begin to heal, he apparently becomes so charismatic people just lower shot prices for him, and so many other abilities that we're not going to get into because they're not really relevant. But then with the upgrade core, he can upgrade all of this stuff even further, as if all of the crap we had before wasn't already good enough. To heal, P uses pulse cells, which are essentially Ergo-powered batteries. When all of them are discharged, they're capable of converting energy from attacks into more power to recharge them. Effectively meaning if P is skilled enough, he has infinite heals. He also has the cube, which is essentially a bottled wish. The cube is capable of taking the powers from wish stones and applying them to P, though most of them are just to help teammates in battle. But he does have one that restores his health over time. Then after kicking the shit out of the wannabe god Simon Manus, he obtained the Arm of God. With vast amounts of ergo, this arm essentially lets you become a higher dimensional being. It's the only vestige that remains of the immortal metal angel. Surprisingly, this thing is not a Legion arm, but P does use it to become a real boy in the ending. Or Geppetto uses it if you pick the bad ending like a moron. Theoretically, P could use this to become a higher dimensional being or some type of god like Simon tried, but P can already beat the shit out of those, so why? Now let's go into his durability.
You really think you can win? Remarkable.
Yeah, he survived that. As if it's not enough to be hit by swords, spears, whatever the hell else the stalkers are using as weapons. He can endure mines being detonated on him, flamethrowers setting him alight, acid being sprayed all over him, saw blades literally tearing him apart, and Baraka hand blades impaling him, ergo-based weaponry tearing him apart, lightning striking him, lasers hitting him, anguished warrior dropping a small building-sized weapon on him. Being made of metal and magic makes you kinda durable. We already know the stupid amount of stuff he can survive when he fights Lasatia in her lightning speed attacks. Not to mention how he's capable of boxing with and beating Simon Manus, who's apparently a higher dimensional being. Though, to be fair, we don't really know how powerful Simon Manus actually is, but he does say that he's capable of rewriting the entire planet, so planetary, I guess. Still a pretty lame villain. Coming down to feats, P has quite a lot of them. He beat the undefeated champion Victor, he beat Lasatia the Complete One, who should be, for all intents and purposes, superior to Victor. He beat Simon Manus, who we already went over as a higher dimensional being, even though he's lame. He proved he was Leia's equal, if not her superior, by defeating Arlecchino, who was amped up on ergo and new body parts. And if you want to say that Leia helped him out too much in the fight, it was P at the end alone fighting Arlecchino. At least until Leia threw him her sword. Regardless, I'm giving the victory to P even if Leia helped. Plus, if you really want to get down to it in the power scaling sense, Lasatia and Simon should scale higher than Arlecchino, even if they're not as hard in the game. And that Simon's scaling is consistent because he was able to take down the Anguished Guardian, who was able to draw upon that higher dimensional ergo power. Also, I wanted another reason to put this clip in the video. But probably most impressively, he was able to fight the Nameless puppet. Though the scaling for Nameless is kinda weird. Nameless is Carlo's original body, infused with various amounts of ergo. The corpse of Carlo is just so full of hatred that it just wants to destroy everything and die. The Nameless puppet was even able to draw upon red ergo, which remember is like supercharged ergo attacks. But the reason the scaling is so weird is P didn't technically beat Nameless. Well, technically, yeah, he killed him. Nameless was gonna kill P. Nameless managed to get P off balance and was going to deliver a final attack, if not for Geppetto stepping in the way. And that does bring up the question, is Nameless more powerful or more skilled than P? The same P who just got finished killing Simon Manus? But in the end, does the question even matter, because P has infinite amounts of attempts to even fight Nameless. It just so happened that this was the successful attempt. So we do kinda reach a monkey on a typewriter paradox. Isn't that always fun to run into with immortal characters? But I guess you could attribute this to Carlo's actual body. So in a weird way, I guess you could say Carlo is stronger than Carlo. Who cares? We got the Simon and Lasatia and Arlecchino scaling. I mean, P is basically Pinocchio if he was Doomslayer after all. So if you ever wanted Pinocchio to be a badass anime protagonist, you got your wish. And that's all we got for the video. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you like it so more people can see it. Now go away.